Good morning. Welcome to our online worship service. This is the Kitsap Unitarian Universalist Fellowship. I invite you to follow along in your order of service. We will put the link in the chat. Whomever you are and wherever you have come from for this hour, we here are one gathered congregation and all are welcome. And this is Tanisha's first time doing tech, so please welcome her. Say hi to her in the chat. My name is Marcia Kristen. I am currently involved in the Committee on Shared Ministry, the Healthy Communications Committee, and I am part of the choir in waiting. Our worship leader this morning is our minister, Reverend Jessica Starr Rockers, and I'd like to welcome any visitors. Please introduce yourself in our chat box. And we welcome even more interaction with all during our after service Zoom coffee hour. The link for our coffee hour will go into the chat next, and you will need to use the password coffee to be admitted to the coffee hour. And the announcements are available on our webpage, www.kuuf.org. or our weekly email newsletter, The Candle. We would like to start today by acknowledging that the land on which we all live is the Aboriginal territory of the Suquamish, the S'Klallam, and the Skokomish people. They have lived in harmony with the lands and waterways along Washington's Central Salish Sea for thousands of years. These tribes still live here and protect the land and waters of their ancestors for future generations, as promised by the Point Elliott Treaty of 1855. Now please enjoy Brian Kenny, Alina Hemingway, and Mike Menefee as they perform our call to worship, Creature of Praise.
Dum ba doo doo dum ba doo doo dum 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 ba dum dum dum.
Large creatures, small creatures, and short and tall creatures come now to sing and praise. Young creatures, old creatures, and hot and cold creatures come now to sing and praise. Sing peace for the earth, sing praise for the sun, sing love for the spirit that makes all creatures one. Sing hope for the goodness of what we can become. Let all creatures sing and praise. Low creatures, high creatures, flying in the sky creatures come now to sing and praise. White creatures, brown creatures, all the world around creatures come now to sing and praise. Sing peace for the earth, sing praise for the sun, sing love for the spirit that makes all creatures one. Sing hope for the goodness of what we can become. Let all creatures sing and praise. Day creatures, night creatures, and left and right creatures come now to sing and praise. Near creatures, far creatures, anywhere you are creatures come now to sing and praise. Sing peace for the earth, sing praise for the sun, sing love for the spirit that makes all creatures one. Sing hope for the goodness of what we can become. Let all creatures sing and praise. Let creatures sing and praise. Sing and praise.
Well, that was fun. Now, please join me in lighting our chalice. If you have your own chalice or candle at home, please light it as we say these words. You can see that the words are on the screen. Come hoof and trunk and tail and horn and paw and wing and claw. Come bird and reptile, mammal born, all full of nature's law. Bring bark and crow and ribbit too, and silent stare and hiss. Bring purr and trill and warble too, and voice no ear can miss. We gather here each life and all to celebrate and sing, to honor creature large and small. 'Tis holiness we bring. And our opening hymn this morning is number 347 in our gray hymnal, Gather the Spirit. This was written by Jim Scott, a Unitarian Universalist singer-songwriter who has performed with Paul Winter Consort. He wrote 3 hymns in our hymnal. Jim lives in Eugene, Oregon now. So please join together in singing, Gather the Spirit. The lyrics will appear on the screen in a moment.
Sacrifice will kindle one flame, witness
Please join me now in the spoken affirmation. The words are on the screen. We gather as a caring community, seeking life's deeper meanings. We value diversity and affirm the worth of all living things. We strive to speak truth in love, to act for justice, to grow in spirit, and to care for the earth. We celebrate with open hearts and minds the creative power that sustains and transforms us. And now it is time for our morning offering. If you would like to donate electronically, please click on the paypal.me link that'll be in the chat box. You may then also email admin@kuuf.org to let us know if your donation is for one, the KUUF General Fund, two, the Minister's Discretionary Fund to help our members in need, or three, our monthly charitable giving recipient for the month of October, the South Kitsap Helpline, which has helped South Kitsap families have the food they need since 1980. You may also send a check to the address that's on the screen. Please write in the memo line to which of the funds your offering should go. And if this is your first time at KUUF, you are our guest, so there is no need to contribute. Let there be an offering to strengthen and sustain our community, which is sacred to so many of us.
Be ours a religion which, like sunshine, goes everywhere. Its temple, all space, its shrine, the good heart, its creed, all truth, its ritual works of love.
Well, good morning, everybody. This is the time in our service when we have a children's story. It's kind of a children's story, children's song today. So I invite all of the young and the young at heart to come closer to the screen. And I've got my guys here today who are going to help me tell this story. Okay, so, and this story requires some animal sounds. So I hope that you will help us and help these guys put this all together. Okay, so here's the story. It's called A Place in the Choir. It was late at night, and all was quiet on the farm. Only dog and cat were prowling in the night. Dog and cat were best friends. That might seem strange for you to hear. Everyone always thinks of a dog not being nice to a cat. But dog and cat had been best friends since they were little, and they didn't understand why people thought they shouldn't be friends. They did everything together, and this night they were singing together as they roamed throughout the barn, checking on the animals. Meow.
Ow!
Meow. Meow.
Ow!
Meow.
Meow.
Excellent. Perched up in the loft was Hoot Owl. Hoot Owl heard the music coming from Dog's howl and Cat's meow. Hoot Owl said, "Dog and Cat, you are making wonderful music together. You should become a duo and perform your songs here on the farm." Cat and Dog thought it was a great idea, and they began to practice their singing.
Ow!
Meow.
Ow!
Meow. Ow, ow, ow. Meow. Well, the music from Cat and Dog woke up Old Cow. He loved the music, so he decided to join in the fun. Moo, meow,
Moo.
ow, ow,
Ow!
Meow. Moo.
Cat and dog stopped singing. They told Old Cow that he couldn't be part of their duo, because a duo is only for two, and besides, the cow was, well, old. Hoot Owl was listening to Cat and Dog tell Old Cow that he couldn't be a part of the duo, and Hoot Owl gave a large hoot.
Woo!
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 And told the story of how Old Cow once had to sing for Farmer Jones until all the other cows came home. You see, Old Cow has a big bass voice, and Farmer Jones needed Old Cow to sing as loud as he could so that the lost cows could find their way home. He was a hero on the farm, and with a bass singer, your duo could become a trio. At first, Dog and Cat were reluctant to listen to Hoot Owl, but once they practiced with Old Cow, they realized they sounded even better.
Moo.
Moo. Meow.
Meow. Meow. Meow. Meow.
Moo.
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 The next day, Dog, Cat, and Old Cow were practicing their singing when Old Cow's friend Hippopotamus came for a visit. Hippopotamus loved to sing, and she joined right in with the trio. Do you know what a hippopotamus does? Moans and groans. That's the singing. Dog and Cat stopped singing. Our group is a trio, and a trio means three only, Dog said. Yeah, said Cat. Besides, only farm animals can be in the trio, and everyone knows that a hippopotamus is not a farm animal. Well, said Hippopotamus, Old Cow is my best friend. I wish I could see him every day, but I don't live on the farm, so I can only come once in a while. I miss my friend Old Cow, and I'd like to sing with you. This reminded Dog and Cat how hard it is to be apart from your best friend. One time, Dog had to go to the vet and stayed away for 3 days, and Cat meowed day and night until Dog returned. Meow.
Meow.
So Dog and Cat invited Hippopotamus to sing along. Hoot Owl was thrilled. Fabulous! Now you have a quartet. And as the quartet practiced, they did indeed sound fabulous.
Moo.
Ow,
Ow!
ow, ow. Meow, meow.
Moo.
Off in the corner of the barn, Cricket and Honeybee had been listening to all the wonderful music. Slowly the insects crept toward the quartet and joined in. Dog and Cat stopped singing again. Not insects! We're not going to have insects in our quartet, are we, Hoot Owl? Hoot Owl peered out at Cat and Dog. Well, now, you could leave them out, but even insects have feelings, and your words have made Honeybee and Cricket really sad. Cat and Dog huddled together once again, and then turned to Hoot Owl and asked, "But what will our group be called now?" Hoot Owl thought out loud. Well, you have the bass, the part on the bottom, where Hippopotamus moans and groans with a big to-do. And Old Cow goes, moo. And Dog and Cat take up the middle, meow.
Ow!
Whoop,
Meow.
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 Where the honeybee hums and the cricket fiddles.
Chirp, 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 chirp.
And you could ask the donkey to bray, hee-haw,
Hee-haw.
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 And the pony to neigh,
Neigh.
neigh. And bring the coyote in to howl, ow, ow,
Ow,
ow.
ow, ow, ow.
You could use bullfrog's croak to
Ribbit.
complete the bottom.
Ribbit.
Ribbit. Ribbit.
With Jaybird and me, you have the top, where the melody and the high notes ring. Hoo, hoo,
Cheep, cheep. Woo, sheep, woo, sheep, woo.
Wow, Dog said to Hoot Owl. What will we call ourselves now? Well, said Hoot Owl, this is a choir. So the choir, with all the different animals and insects, decided to put on a concert. On the day of the event, the farm began to fill up with the audience. Duck quacked his way to his seat, but the possum didn't have much to say. They quietly waddled to their seat. Porcupine entered while talking to herself again. Hawk was high in the rafters, and far off you could hear the sound of the whales saying hello. This audience wasn't sure what to expect. How could all these different kinds of animals and insects work together to create music that would sound good? This audience didn't think it was going to work. Then the choir came out on stage and began to sing. Okay, so now that we've practiced all of our animal songs, all of our animal sounds, we're going to use them in this song. This is All God's Critters. All God's critters got a place in the choir. Some sing low, some sing high, some sing out loud on a telephone wire. Some just clap their hands or paws or anything they got now. Well, listen to the bass, it's the one on the bottom where the bullfrog croaks and the hippopotamus moans and groans with a big to-do, and the old cow just goes ooh. Well, the dogs and the cats, they take up the middle. The honeybee hums and the crickets fiddle. The donkey brays and the pony days, and the old coyote howls. Ow, 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 ow. All God's critters got a place in the choir. Some sing low, some sing higher, some sing out loud on the telephone wire. Some just clap their hands or paws or anything they got now. Well, listen to the top where the little bird sings the melody with the high voice ringing. The hoot owl hollers over everything, and the jaybird disagrees. Cheep, 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 cheep. Is that it? Singing in the nighttime, singing in the day. The little duck quacks and he's on his way. The possum don't have much to say, and the porcupine talks to herself. All God's critters got a place in the choir. Some sing low, some sing higher, some sing out loud on a telephone wire. Some just clap their hands and paws or anything they got now. Everybody here is a part of the plan. We all get to play in the great critter band. From the eagle in the sky to the whale in the sea, it's one great symphony. All God's critters got a place in the choir. Some sing low, some sing higher, some sing out loud on the telephone wire. Some just clap their hands or paws or anything they got now. Woo! Well, all the animals sounded so wonderful together, and I hope that you were making your animal sounds at home, that the enthusiastic audience couldn't help but join in with the singing of the choir. Cat and Dog turned to Hoot Owl and asked, Hoot Owl, what do we call ourselves when all the animals in the choir are singing and all the animals in the audience are singing together too? Hoot Owl did not hesitate in his answer. Why, Cat and Dog, we have a community. And that's kind of how it feels when we're all gathered together in the sanctuary singing, doesn't it? And you know what we do in community. We let our lights shine. And we didn't want to let a Sunday go by where we at least didn't sing one piece of that song. So we're just going to sing the one chorus. Hope you're ready. This little light of mine, I'm going to let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm going to let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm going to let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Thank you for singing along, for all those animal sounds. We went through that song really fast and fun. I like that song a lot. I hope you were able to sing along. And now is the time in our service for our joys and our sorrows. Though we are physically distanced from one another, our hearts and our spirits remain connected. When shared together, our joys are amplified and our sorrows lessened. If you have a personal joy or a sorrow to share, I invite you to put it into the chat this morning. Bonner has a joy for participating in the first Black Lives Matter demonstration at 3:30 this past Friday at Port Orchard City Hall. 29 of us were there waving to drivers while holding banners and signs. Bonner thinks he might have made a new friend there. That's a joy. Joy that Tanisha is running Zoom today. Joy. Thank you, Tanisha. Happy anniversary to Mike and Carol Menifee. Happy anniversary. What a joy that is. These choir members loved singing Through the Miles with all of you critters. That's from Liz and Brian. Wonderful. I'm so glad you were singing. Maya and Amelia, joy for our new dog Grace, an 8-year-old English pointer who needed a good home. How wonderful. Grace, welcome. And Maya and Amelia, I bet you're so happy to have Grace with you. Samantha shares, I'm so thankful for my furry babies. Well, so many of us share in that with you, Samantha, and later in the service we'll get a chance to see everybody's. Morgan's joy is that we now have given Nathan's family piano a new home. We now have live music in our home. Congratulations, that's wonderful. Joy that Guy's son-in-law Scott is home from the hospital after his bout with COVID. We're so glad that he's home and he's well and continues his road to recovery, sending love and blessings to Scott. Joy also for KUUF's new Best Kept Secret Wednesday Vesper service at 7:30. Last week's Vespers healed my heart and was just what I needed. I'm so glad to hear that, Bonner. Joey's joy is that I'm getting stronger and losing weight. We're sharing that joy with you, Joey. Ellen says, happy birthday to Ellen. Maybe that's Alan who wrote that. Happy birthday to Ellen, September 29th. Happy birthday, Ellen. Joy for the touch and devotion of Senor Pepe. That's from Chris. Chris, we're so grateful that you sent in a picture of Senor Pepe for our service today as well. So everybody should keep an eye out for that. We share our joy with you. Well, thank you everyone for sharing. Oh, Jennifer Myers shares, my youngest will be 13 next week. Happy birthday to your youngest. How wonderful. Joy, I was able to visit my mom and sisters in San Francisco last week, and that's from Marcy. Wonderful, we share in that joy with you. Vernita, joy to be a part of KUUF. Vernita, we're so glad that you are a part of this community. We share that joy for sure. Well, thank you everyone for sharing this morning. May you who shared feel the love of this community holding you close. For all those whose joy or sorrow is too tender to share this morning, our hearts are with you. May the spirit of life and love bring peace to us all. Amen, and blessed be.
Hello, people. I'm going to read one poem from my new book, Dog Songs, and it's called Little Dog's Rhapsody in the Night. He puts his cheek against mine and makes small, expressive sounds. And when I'm awake or awake enough, he turns upside down, his forepaws in the air, and his eyes dark and fervent. Tell me you love me, he says. Tell me again. Could there be a sweeter arrangement? Over and over, he gets to ask, I get to tell.
Well, in April, this past spring, I preached a homily about my baby chicks. How just that week I had watched them in the incubator hatching from their eggs. It was such a glorious thing to be doing around the time of Easter, watching eggs hatch. It brought me a lot of joy and renewal and a feeling of rebirth. Summer was on its way. I felt hopeful we would be worshiping together in person again soon. As we move through the fall and toward winter now, I think back on that springtime hopefulness with no small measure of envy. What I wouldn't give to have a taste of that feeling now, the feeling that I had on Easter morning. If you recall, I spoke about resting inside our homes, our shells, practicing self-care, so when the time came for us to break out, we would have the strength we needed to push through the difficult task of cracking the egg and surviving the process of birth and rebirth. And you might recall I shared some chicken farmer wisdom that a chick can't be rushed or even assisted out of its egg during the birthing process. Because if we don't let the chick struggle a bit, it won't have the necessary strength and grit that it needs to survive life outside the shell. And I want to share with you a piece of the story of that chick hatching that I didn't share in April, about the chick that didn't have such an easy time, the chick whose shell I broke by hand. If you recall, we had a dozen hatching eggs. Of those dozen, 9 chicks went through the usual process. They pipped, they zipped, they hatched. This means they poked a hole in the egg, and they cracked a line down the side of the shell, and then they stretched and wrestled and forced the 2 sides of the eggshell apart until they were free. On Easter morning, I showed a YouTube video of the process, not my own chick, but a different one, hatching from its shell. When nature has control and all conditions are optimal, the process progresses without incident, no matter how anxious the people are who are dancing and shouting outside of the incubator. On hatch day, we had 9 chicks, a respectable number. As they dried and fluffed up, we moved them from the incubator into the brooder. The 3 eggs that remained, we watched for any sign they might just be late to the party. About halfway through the day, one of the eggs showed signs of life. The chick had pipped, so it had poked the hole, and it had started to zip, but then something happened. Maybe it was because of some dried goo on the side of the egg from another hatched chick. Maybe it was the drop in humidity in the incubator when we had removed the first 9 chicks. But for some reason, the chicken couldn't complete the zip, the cracked line down the side of the shell, that was necessary to make the hatching process a success. I was resolved to do very little. That is, until I heard the chirping. Towards evening on that day, the chick had started to call out from inside its shell. This was upsetting. So before bed, I took one chopstick and I poked it through the air vent of the incubator, and I attempted to give that chick some help. I tried every which way to safely loosen the eggshell a bit, to give that chick some encouragement, everything short of actually peeling any of the shell off, because that would be dangerous. That might harm the chick irreparably. So I made the difficult decision to let nature take its course, come what may, and I went to bed. All night the chick chirped, and its cries got louder and louder as the night went on. Sometime around 3 a.m. I got up and tried to help again with my chopstick, but I still made no headway. Around 6 a.m. I called my mother, and I lamented to her that one of the chicks was suffering a bit. But the rules on chicken farming were clear. I was not supposed to help, and I told her I was sad because there was nothing I could do. Hearing this, my mother got a little choked up. "Oh no," she said, "oh no. Please do something. You can't let it suffer." And I have to tell you something about my mother. She hates chickens. She thinks they're gross. But she is no stranger to animal husbandry, and she's no stranger to the sorrows of a difficult birthing process. And taking all of this into account, she was very clear with me. In no way was I going to be allowed to let that chick die. When I got off the phone with her, I sat next to the incubator where the chick was still chirping, and I weighed my options. Whether or not I would be willing to care for a chicken that might not be very strong or very smart or alive for very long. Would I be willing to take the risk that I might hurt it just by trying to help? Was I strong enough to live with the consequences of my choices. And in one wild moment of bravery, thinking only of my mother, really, I stood up and slipped my hands under the lid of the incubator, and I peeled the stuck shell off the crying baby chick. I had to go slow. With every piece of shell, it was possible I would cause harm to the chick. So I peeled a piece off, then I reassessed, and I peeled another piece and checked again, until all that was left was the membrane, and inside that the chick still struggled. And with one move, I pulled apart the membrane and let that poor chicken free. It didn't look good. It looked bad. It was shriveled and sticky and very confused, but it was breathing. And so I put the lid back on and turned up the humidity and left it alone. My mother named her Agatha, I don't know why, and that later became Agatha because, of course. And I put them on Zoom together so my mother could encourage Agatha to keep fighting, keep trying, keep moving through. And Agatha eventually dried off and successfully moved to the brooder, and though she was smaller than her siblings at first, she soon caught up. And now she is living in the chicken coop with all the other chickens, and she lays the biggest eggs of all, blue eggs. None of our other chickens lay blue eggs. Agatha is, and always will be, just a little bit special. As this pandemic has worn on, and we move now into the winter, the long dark, I have taken more and more inspiration from the story of Agatha, the difficult truth of what it means to truly struggle out of that shell. And today, as we honor the ways that our animal companions comfort us and inspire us and help us to keep going, perhaps we might all take a lesson from the story of Agatha. I was told to leave well enough alone, that this had nothing to do with me, that nature would run its course in due time, and my job was to respect the process. My job was to stay out of the way and accept the outcome. My job was to care for the chicks that did survive and not spend too much time on the one that was struggling. That chick was on its own. But there was something in the tone of my mother's voice that day, something in her sorrow and her certainty, something that reminded me that sometimes nothing is what it seems, and that in every moment miracles are possible. If we move forward with clarity of purpose, with an honest appraisal of all possible outcomes, and with a grounding in love and liberation, we can go against conventional wisdom and common sense, and we can do what appears impossible. This is the piece of the story of the egg hatching that has lasted. The story of Agatha, her struggle for life, and that moment when I stood next to the incubator and decided to do the difficult thing, to help. Even when I wasn't sure what I was doing, even when I'd been told not to, even when I was almost certain I would make a mistake and screw up and hurt the very life I was trying to save. This is the moment that has stayed with me, the one that resonates deepest as we enter this fall and winter. We watch as our national leadership shows such selfish and cruel disregard of life, of all creation, as human lives and our planet continue to struggle in ways large and small. We struggle and look around and see others struggling too. And then being brave means something different than it ever has before. Being brave means following an inner wisdom, one that doesn't always go along with what we've been told. It means having faith that no matter the outcome, we'll be all right if we help one another, if we listen and are compassionate and stay brave. Now you know I love animals, and the Animal Blessing is one of my favorite services. And as the photos came in this week from all of your beloved animals, I was the one who felt blessed. I know that this year, more so than ever, each one of these animals has served as a precious, blessed companion on our journeys through this crisis. While we can't be together physically, our animals have been physically with us more than ever before, and they have taken an even more holy place in our hearts, in our daily lives, and in the stories we tell to make sense of this time. Some of the animals in our ritual have passed on. Some have health issues with which they are currently struggling, and some have served as critical pieces of our own wellness. Many of them are rescues, and we saved their lives, as I did with Agatha. But all of them, every single one, has saved our lives, just by being themselves. I mean, to me, that's the best part. They have no idea. They save our lives, and most of them spend the day sleeping. They don't have to do anything. They just exist. They just love us. Some of them aren't even particularly nice. Some are downright grumpy. And yet, we have a sacred relationship with them that inspires us, gives us purpose, and keeps us going. Agatha has no idea, of course, that her name is even Agatha. She's a chicken. But her story of struggle, the will she had to live, and the way that I got to be part of that story will always be sacred to me. And all of these animals, each one of them, whose photo we are about to see, they are sacred too. They have stories of birth and survival, and some even have stories of passing on to the next life. And the fullness of their existence, an existence we only know from the outside looking in, the fullness of their lives has enriched our fellowship. Our work here is to bring more love into the world, and our animal companions are part of that. They draw us ever deeper into the interdependent web, into the sacred knowing that all life is connected and all life is holy and inherently worthy of protection, safety, and care. October 4th in the Roman Catholic calendar is the feast of St. Francis of Assisi. St. Francis was a notorious animal lover. The apocryphal tales of his communion with all of creation were summed up to me as a child with the story of the almond tree. "Brother Almond, speak to me of God," St. Francis said, and the almond tree blossomed. Statues of St. Francis often depict him with birds on his shoulders and squirrels at his feet, as if he himself were a tree, a safe place for animals to reside. And while Unitarian Universalists don't have saints, we can take great inspiration from these stories. May we continue to be inspired and uplifted by our animal companions, ever a part of the mysterious web of life, ever committed to protecting it, and ever mindful to the wisdom that it holds, open to the blessings of health and healing inherent in our relationship with all of creation. And now for our blessing of the animals.
When you're down and troubled and you need a helping hand, and nothing's going right, close your eyes and think of me, and soon I will be there to brighten up even your darkest night. You just call out my name, and you know wherever I am, I'll come running. Oh yeah, babe, to see you again. Winter, spring, summer, or fall, you got to do is call, and I'll be there, yeah, yeah, yeah. You've got a friend. If the sky above you should turn dark and full of clouds, and that old north wind should begin to blow, keep your head together and call my name out loud now. Soon I'll be knocking upon your door. You just call up my name, and you know wherever I am, I'll come running. Oh, yes, I will see you again. Winter, spring, summer, or fall, yeah. All you got to do is call, and I'll be there, yeah, yeah, yeah. Hey, ain't it good to know that you've got a friend when people can be so cold? They'll hurt you and desert you. Well, they'll take your soul if you let them. Oh, yeah, but don't you let them. You just call out my name, and you know wherever I am, I'll come running to see you again. Oh, baby, don't you know about winter, spring, summer, or fall? Hey, now all you've got to do is call. Lord, I'll be there, yes, I will. You've got a friend. You've got a friend, yeah. Ain't it good to know you've got a friend? Ain't it good to know you've got a friend? Oh, yeah, yeah, you've got a friend.
Well, I now invite you to set an intention and choose your word for the week ahead. You can choose a word or phrase, and if you feel called to, put it in the chat and I will read them aloud. Compassion, humility, gratitude, love, being with dogs, music, Agatha, grace, healing, perseverance, hush, no enemy in my heart, patience, tenderness, assessment and reassessment, acceptance, endure, tenderness, patience, I see some words in the chat and I'm not sure what they are. So maybe you can. Well, thank you everyone for sharing your intentions. The words that we share resonate in our hearts and in our spirits throughout the week. And now for our closing hymn, All Creatures of the Earth and Sky.
All creatures of the earth and sky, come kindred, lift your voices high. Alleluia, alleluia. Bright burning sun with golden beam, soft shining moon with silver gleam. Alleluia, 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 alleluia. Swift rushing winds so wild and strong, white clouds that sail in heaven along. Alleluia, alleluia. Fair rising morning, praise, rejoice. High stars of evening find a voice. Alleluia, 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 alleluia. Cool flowing water, pure and clear, make music for all life to hear. Alleluia, alleluia. Dance, flame of fire so strong and bright, and bless us with your warmth and light. Alleluia, 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 alleluia. Embracing earth, you day by day bring forth your blessings on our way. Alleluia, alleluia. All herbs and fruits that richly grow, let them the glory also show. Alleluia, 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 alleluia. All you of understanding heart, forgiving others, take your part. Alleluia, alleluia. Let all things now the holy bless, and worship God in humbleness. Alleluia, 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 alleluia,
Well, thank you everyone for being here today. I do want to say before we close that our animal blessing today was focused on our animal companions mostly, and I do, and the wild animals as well. And I do want to name that that we have a complicated relationship with animals, and some of those animals are used for food in ways that continue to stress our planet and stress all of creation. And I want to lift up, before we close, those animals as well, and send our blessing and gratitude for the animals who become our food. and who often suffer under conditions that are inhumane. And we carry those animals and our relationship with those animals in our hearts as well. So a blessing on all of our animal relationships, each one. And thank you for being here today. Please join us after this for coffee hour. The link and the password will appear on your screen. There it is. In the chat. It's in the chat, and you can actually click on the link in the chat and it'll take you right to coffee hour, but don't do it yet because I'm not quite done. Got one more thing. The password is coffee with a capital C. And the question for our small groups during coffee hour is, how have you been blessed by an animal, a pet, or even an animal in nature? How do you hold that relationship sacred? And now let us extinguish our chalices. And I want to close with this famous poem from Wendell Berry, The Peace of Wild Things. When despair for the world grows in me, and I wake in the night at the least sound, in fear of what my life and my children's lives may be, I go and lie down where the wood drake rests in his beauty on the water, and the great heron feeds. I come into the peace of wild things, who do not tax their lives with forethought of grief. I come into the presence of still water, and I feel above me the day-blind stars, waiting with their light. For a time I rest in the grace of the world and am free. Amen. Ashe. May it be so.